Welcome, everyone, including our TV audience, to the Thursday, January 16th, 2005 Amenia Town Board meeting. We have a limited number of resolutions, which hopefully will get us out of here before midnight. Before we get started, I just wanted to apologize because the agenda didn't go out until, was it this morning?
Yesterday.
Last night. And we would like to have more time than that, but because I was away and various other problems, it didn't happen. So anyway, I know people like to have more time to sort of look at everything, and they didn't. So anyway, but I guess beyond that, we should start with saluting the flag, which we do every time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Emergency exits are the door you came in and this door over here, which we haven't tested, but I'm sure it does open. Dawn, the roll call,
Sure.
please.
Welcome, everyone. Supervisor Blackman?
Here.
Council members Winters?
Here.
Ham? Here. Ahern? Here. And let the record reflect that Councilman Revillard will be absent this evening.
So, that was a good poll. They're sticky though.
Yes, they are.
So, we'll start with public comment as we usually do. We'll start with public comment as we usually do. 3 minutes per speaker. And who wants to start? If anyone.
This is the public comment on just the entire agenda. This is agenda items. This is not, he hasn't opened that yet.
Oh, okay, I'm
answer
sorry, I
that,
should have
sorry.
made that clear. Right, so this is for, not for the cannabis, two cannabis local laws.
I think
that
we
are-
have somebody that wants to speak.
We have a
Oh!
special guest in the audience.
Deirdre.
I'm so glad.
Is this on? Yes, it is. Hi, Deirdre Houston, Dutchess County Legislator. I just wanted to come tonight and give you guys an update on what the county has been up to since my last visit, which I believe was in November. From November to December, we spent a lot of time deliberating and working on our county budget, which I can tell you that we passed mid to late December. I think it was December 18th. And it's a good budget. I'm happy to say that I was able to offer and get 2 amendments passed that I think are good for the residents of northern Dutchess County that sometimes are forgotten. One of them is we were able to fund $500,000 in MIG grants, which MIG grants, as you know, are the Municipal Innovation Grants. It's a competitive grant. And specifically, I targeted it towards seniors for municipalities and nonprofits to be able to upgrade their infrastructure or their buildings for senior drop-in centers. The grant will come out sometime in 2025, again, for municipalities. I know, for instance, like Pleasant Valley has a senior drop-in center, and they could definitely use some upgrades with furniture and things. So these MIG grants in the past, we have targeted things like veterans and youth sports. If you guys remember, we did the youth grant a couple years ago. So we just felt it was one area that we had not been able to allow for municipalities and nonprofits to address. So I'm proud to bring that forward, and that was unanimously supported by my colleagues. And the other amendment that I was able to bring forward was $50,000 for veterans, specific to veterans transportation. We all know that transportation is a huge issue specific to central and northern Dutchess County. And so I worked with the Deputy of Veterans Affairs, Adam Roach, and he is working on a program called Go Veteran, and it will basically be on-demand ride service for veterans. And if you guys have any interest, I would love to invite him to come to one of your town board meetings and give you guys a more in-depth coverage of what that Go Veteran program looks like, especially because it's tailored to and from our Office of the Aging program, which is called Go Grandparent, which is the same kind of transportation system. And I don't know that everyone in this area knows what it is and what it offers. So if you'd be open to it, I would love to work with, Leo and Dawn Marie and see if we can get on the agenda to bring one of the 2 people out here to go over that program with you guys.
Great. Yes.
Great, I'll work on it. And I just wanted to, see if there's anything you need from me.
Actually, were you able to make any progress in getting the pillbox for the drugstore?
So I spoke with our Assemblyman A.J. Bupan. I saw him last week, and he said it's definitely something that he can get for us, and he will be working on it with me. And we don't believe there's any charge to it. We believe it's a state program that doesn't require any funding on behalf of the pharmacy or the citizens of Amenia. So it's something he's willing to work on, and I was actually going to stop in at the Millbrook Pharmacy, because I know they have one, to see how they went about getting it. I think it's through the County Sheriff's Department, so I'll also reach out to our County Sheriff's Department and see how they can help us in it. But definitely something we're working on.
Okay, and what about the hazardous waste?
So the hazardous waste, I brought it up during the budget process with Commissioner of Planning Rafter, and there is some concerns about hazardous waste because the county doesn't actually collect the hazardous waste, it's a third party. And the understanding is that once it's collected within the county, it cannot be then recollected at a different site. So, because I had suggested maybe a satellite site here that the county could coordinate and collect the hazardous waste and then take it to their own hazardous waste site. He said that's not possible, but that he would be willing to look at adding a site out here once a year, and he was going to look to see if he could find it in his budget to do it out here once a year with the understanding that there will be a location available. So I will definitely follow up with him to see if we've made any progress on that. I sent you an email on that, didn't I?
No.
Oh, okay. We'll follow up with that.
All right, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's great.
Great.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks.
sure we'll think of other things that we need from you, but
No problem. Thank you.
at the moment,
We got your number.
thanks very much for coming. Yes, Judy. I would have been so disappointed.
I would never want to disappoint you, Mr.
Thank you, I
Supervisor.
appreciate that.
Let me see. This is a comment really on the discussion item, the term limits for the board. And, well, the term for supervisor, and not so much. The term limits for the board, I would like to hear everybody's comments, obviously, beforehand. But I have to say myself, I'm not in favor of term limits for the board for a variety of reasons. Age, I know that in talking, in reading some information from board member Winters, he had talked about wanting to have a lower average age for the town board. I remember when I was young being very irritated that people didn't think that I ought to be able to have a voice in some things because I was so young. Now that I am not any longer young, I'm irritated at the idea that I should not have a voice in things because I'm older. So I would like not to hear any more comments about how the average age of the board ought to be younger. That's my own personal issue. But I'd like to see what the case is made because myself, I think I understand wanting fresh blood and I understand wanting fresh points of view. But I also think that there is value to having experience in certain things. And the main thing to me is that the voters also have a chance. I mean, the last election, people expressed that they did want to change. So, you know, if people want to change, the people that are up there, then the voters can do that. So I'm not in favor of artificially cutting that with a term limit. But that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then let's move into the public hearing on the local law, repealing local law number 1 of 2022 from 2 years ago. Well, you could probably all do that math, which was opting in to allow cannabis retail dispensaries. Wasn't it opting out?
You're repealing local law number 1, which was an opt-out, and then you're going to opt
Oh, there's a comma there, okay.
to allow cannabis retail dispensaries within the town.
Okay.
So is that a motion that you're making to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open the
Thank
public
you,
hearing.
Leo.
Thank you, Don.
I'll second that.
I'll get the hang of this
It's
eventually.
okay. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay, so now, if there's any public comment.
Regarding the opt-in.
Yeah, Darlene Reamer. I live on 604 Smithfield Valley Road.
in Amenia, and I have been on the town board. I've been involved in a lot of things, doing Fountain Square. You know, I've always participated whenever I could. And I do feel that, you know, this cannabis, I don't think we should have any cannabis in Amenia. I feel if you want to get young people with young families, you don't want to have an issue where they have access to cannabis more readily without the supervision of their parents. And I know, you know, I live in Smithfield, and there are 3 children, 18, 19, and 20, overdosed on drugs, and they're buried in Smithfield Cemetery. And it's really sad to see. And actually, lost my brother-in-law to that as well when he was serving in Vietnam. The stress of all that, he got into drugs and he ended up suicide. So there are other ways to relieve stress or to be part of a community, and if you want a younger population, I think you have things like put money towards a playground, like Millerton has done, a sidewalk to the playground, which has been promised for 20 years. I mean, it was way back when I was on the town board, and that was supposed to happen. It hasn't happened, and I see mothers with young children going down there just to play on the swings or do something, play ball on their own. And they're in the street. I almost hit this woman and her little child because they were walking on the wrong side of the street. They weren't walking towards me, and they could have been hit. It's just, that's where the money should be put, and that's where the focus should be put. And I believe we don't want to allow it. I don't think it's necessary. So I would like to, you know, not repeal that, you know, opting out law that we talked about. And I'm trying to think if I was on the board at the time. Maybe not, but I did speak about opting out on it.
In
I don't think-
2022, yes, we were both here.
What?
Yes, you were here and I was here that night.
Oh, that's right, I remember, yes. So that would be my comment on that, and the public hearing on the other one is not something, I mean, could I speak about that now?
It's probably better if you wait,
Come
just
back.
so it's, so
Okay. Just
come back
we
so it's
separate
recorded.
them.
Okay. One other thing while I'm talking about opting out. If you saw in the same paper with the public notice for this meeting is all the drugs that they found in Poughkeepsie, Millbrook. There are tons of them, and they're all packaging, and they're out in our streets. And I have to say, one day I found a wallet on the road going to Sharon, and I stopped because I thought, oh, you know, someone lost a wallet. I'll pick it up and see what, you know, who it belongs to. There was $700 in 20s in that wallet. And it was someone who was a drug dealer, because when I called them to pick up their wallet, and they said, oh, great, we're back in business again. And it didn't make sense to me. Back in business, what does that mean? And it was someone who was dealing in drugs. And I wish I had just kept the money and not called them, but I called them. I thought it would be some lonely person who needed money, you know, but it was a dealer, and I just don't feel we need that. I mean, it's up in Great Barrington, and I know a lot of people go up there, and the ones who come back on Route 7, there have been so many accidents in that, and I'm just in favor of not having it and still opt out. Thank you.
Are we allowed to speak during this time?
No, it's
It's probably
comment,
better
not
if we don't.
discussion.
Okay.
Anyone else would like to speak?
Cross-section.
I'm Diane Rivara. I live 5005 Route 22, right across the street. And I feel very strongly about not having a dispensary in Amenia. I can honestly say, I mean, I've never been a drug user, I've never tried marijuana.
Bless you.
It's just never had any interest for me. But there are a lot of, there's a lot of data out there. I know it can make money and all of that for the town, but I think that the health risks, I mean, regular marijuana use can have negative effects on mental health, including increased risk of anxiety, depression, and psychosis in vulnerable individuals. Speaking of the driving, legal marijuana use could lead to an increase in impaired driving, and the police really have no way to measure if somebody's driving under the use of, marijuana, not like they can do a breathalyzer for, drinking. It can have negative impact on the neighborhood. I mean, having a dispensary in Amenia changes the character of the neighborhood, making it less family-friendly. And, we got to make sure it's not near schools or parks or things like that. There's also an increased addiction risk. Regular marijuana use has the potential to lead to dependency, particularly among individuals who start using marijuana at a younger age. And it could exacerbate existing public health issues related to addiction. It can also lead to overconsumption with the edibles and the concentrates having stronger effects that not all the users understand what they're getting and what they're taking. And it's going to also have an effect on law enforcement. There's, while it's legal on the state level, it's still not legal federally, and who knows if there's going to be conflicting issues if things, happen. I don't think the town of Amenia needs it, and I think that, as this woman stated, Great Barrington has it. It's not that far away, but I'm worried about the risk of accidents and things like that. So.
Thank you. Bob, I gather you wanted to
Yeah.
say something.
A couple of words. My name is Bob Reamer. I came to Amenia almost 60 years ago. I was going to stay 5 years, but I actually fell in love with the town. I think Amenia and Millerton have a wonderful cooperative agreement. I worked at the high school where young people have had an opportunity to do quite well. You heard my wife mention the 3 overdoses that we have in the Smithfield Cemetery. I'm president of that infamous task. And these were all 3 people under 30 years of age. One being, namely, my brother. My brother was a fighter pilot in Vietnam. I can speak firmly to see him change. He went from a real good athlete, college graduate, played hockey, basketball, and actually participated with some of the hiking club that I had at Amenia High School, Wibatuck. And the first time we were going to find the birthplace of the Hudson River, we were going up to Mount Marcy. We were in Millerton, and I went to look for him, and I saw him over in my garage there, lighting up a joint, and I almost fell over. I said, "What is this about?" Because he had gone from a real characteristic athlete who cared about his health. He said, "I've got real problems with this Vietnam business. I'm worried about being shipped out, and the stress is getting to me." I said, "You really ought to think about it seriously, what you're doing to yourself." Anyway, putting that aside, I think this woman also mentioned the correlation between schizophrenia for certain individuals and THC is very serious. It's a definite pathway to mental illness that is very, very well documented. It's about 0.08, almost getting up close to 1. It doesn't happen to all individuals, as does most drugs. As we're finding out today, all of a sudden, there's a tremendous correlation between alcohol and cancer. Nobody ever dreamed of alcohol being carcinogenic, but it's now showing up to be highly carcinogenic, to very parts of cancer, could be pancreatic or some of the other forms. So we're very slow on learning what to do. And when I was teaching in the 70s, all of a sudden a big wave came in of cannabis, and then it disappeared. We would have a school dance, and you could almost immediately, here it goes, you could smell somebody lighting up a joint. And then it disappeared. But now it's coming back again in a wave, but we're also getting along with it, this wave on fentanyl. And I know a lot of young children in Amenia up to the age of 30 have died of fentanyl overdoses. Some of the students I had lost their children. And I find that kind of overwhelming. I think we've got to take a hard look at what we're doing, and people have to keep their eyes open. I was driving down the mall the other day with my wife in Poughkeepsie, and I couldn't believe someone standing on the side of the road doing heroin. I mean, you would not expect that in Poughkeepsie, New York. They've reopened the mall now, and you can see these people on the side of the road. They're either dealing with crack, but this fellow was injecting, I'm assuming it was heroin. So I'm strongly against cannabis. I don't think it has any place. And I think if you do a little research on the towns in Dutchess County, you won't see the progressive towns becoming engaged in incorporating cannabis dispensaries. The other thing that was mentioned was cannabis up in Great Barrington. If you do a little research, they're having an accident about once a week of someone being impaired driving coming down Route 7. You cannot easily tell if somebody's stoned at the wheel. So it's a serious issue, and I strongly am against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Judy?
Hello, my name is Judy Moran. I myself am not in favor of making it easier for people to access marijuana products, short of those who need it for medicinal purposes. I sympathize there, and I understand. I'm not in favor myself of a dispensary, but more to the point, I would like to see this local law go to referendum. I would like the board to choose to put it open to referendum. I know on a different local law earlier for the funding of the garage, the highway garage, the Councilman Winters had said, quite rightly, if people want to petition for referendum, they can. I got up and said that because everyone sitting at the table who had run for the position, Nicole was at the table, but she had not run. Every single person there who had run had on their campaign promises that they were going to fix the highway garage situation. So what I said, and I think that there's validity to that, is that you all ran on that and you got elected, so the voters have already told you what they think about your platform. However, nobody ran on a platform of changing the cannabis, with the exception of one board member. That's 1 out of 5. You know, so I do not feel there is the automatic vote from the public to say they approve of this being passed without a referendum. So accordingly, I would ask you to vote when you pass the law to put it up for a public referendum so that people get a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Unless anyone else is going to talk, which I think we don't have that many people in the room, I think we shall move on to the second.
So you,
Wait a minute, can we,
so
can we make a
Oh, I'm
motion
sorry.
on this first one?
you have to, you're going to have to either
Oh,
make a
right,
decision
sorry.
to keep the public comments open, or you're closing the public comment.
Because we
But we
can
want,
keep them open for another.
a week.
So-
So I'm making a motion that we keep the public hearing open for the February 6th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Yeah. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
No.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. So the public hearing will remain open until our next town board meeting.
Okay. Right, so we have a second public hearing on the second part of the cannabis local law. And that,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
well, sure.
My mistake, yep.
Okay, and if there are comments on that you'd like to make, I mean,
So just to confirm, you're looking to you're making a motion to open the public hearing to amend Chapter 121 of the Town Code zoning to regulate adult use of cannabis retail dispensaries?
Dawn, what would I do without you?
I don't know. This
I
is
don't
so
know
great.
either.
You're doing such a great job, Leo. Does somebody want to second Leo's motion?
I second it.
Okay.
Okay, so does anyone want to speak more specifically about that, which is, the first one was to opt in or reverse the opt out that was done 2 years ago, and the second one is the specifics of the local law and the zoning implications. Darlene?
This is Mark.
Well, I hate to be redundant, but
You get more time that way. No.
I think, if someone wants that, they should go to a physician and have it prescribed to them. I don't think we should have an open dispensary where someone can just walk in and request it on their own. And again, I don't think Amenia is appropriate to that. And I have to say, off the record here, someone came to me, I have the building, I'm an architect, have the building right on the corner. They asked me if I would sell my building, and I said, well, I really hadn't planned to sell it. I've been in business 35 years as an architect, and I'm 80, but I'm still working, so I'm not going to sell it. But they said, well, when you decide to sell it, whatever your asking price is, I will double it. I said, you really want my building that badly? He said, I love your building, and it's great for a dispensary. And you have parking, so we can accommodate many more people in your parking lot. And I said, no, thank you. This building is not for sale. No. I just don't, I think if people are really in need of something like that, you go to your physician and they will have advice to you. We're not going to have dispensaries just randomly say, yeah, you're an adult, you're over 21, here you go. No.
Anyone else?
I just want to say one more thing. And I agree that it should go to a referendum. And I meant to say that before, but I forgot. So I just think it shouldn't be, as you put it, it shouldn't, I don't feel the board should just make that decision. I think it should be the people of Amenia that get to vote on it. So.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Oh, gee, sorry. What was I thinking?
I'm not going to say anything different, but since this is a different public hearing and it is a different local law, the same comments I made also apply to this law. I think that it should be put up for referendum, and I hope the board chooses to do so and doesn't leave it to the citizenry to petition.
I will be redundant.
Having this strange sense
I
of
agree
deja
with
vu.
both Judy and this other gal that this definitely should be put up before the public referendum. It should not be a small, singular decision. It has to have a broader audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so,
I make a motion to extend this public hearing until for the meeting in February 6th.
I'll second that.
We're keeping the public comment period open. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
No.
Ham?
Yes.
Yes. Aaron? Motion carries.
Okay. Since I was away last week and my deputy supervisor, Rosanna Ham, bravely took on the excitement of town hall, I thought she should tell us directly what happened.
Well, I'm not going to tell all the secrets.
No. Not the toilet paper debacle, definitely not that.
So I had the pleasure of attending the Dutchess County Supervisor and Mayor Association meeting on January 7th in Pleasant Valley, and there was a presentation on the emergency medical services. Obviously, emergency medical services is a huge problem in the county. They're proposing to serve as a temporary measure to provide critical EMS response to residents as a stopgap measure while longer-term solutions can be developed. So this is not, will not serve as a primary EMS coverage, but it will serve as a backup. So when somebody, say there's an emergency call in Amenia and our Amenia people are someplace else and they're not available, then the county steps in and they call. Now, if in the meantime somebody becomes available, then they will back off. So it's only a secondary. The presentation was done by Mr. William Beal, who did a wonderful job. And so it's a supplemental coverage. It's temporary measure. They're working with all the regional companies. They're talking about workforce development, trying to get more people involved and get the training for EMS services. An interesting little fact that I didn't know it was this bad, but after COVID, about 50% of the people that were involved in EMS services did not return. So there is a huge shortage, so they're trying to recruit and offer incentives, also offer support to people that are currently serving. As Mr. Beal pointed out, people that are involved in EMS services see some things that nobody should see, and as a result it has an impact, so they're offering services. So they're doing a lot of work in this area, so we can be really pleased about that. I also attended a Zoom meeting on the Community Development Block Grant, which we'll talk about later. It was a Zoom meeting, and they talked about what things qualified for the block grant. We need to have a public hearing for that as well, and the letter of intent is due on February 3rd. The application is actually due on March 3rd. And basically, we need to talk about what kinds of things we see as a need that we can apply for that qualify. So that was also very interesting, and we will talk about this later. The other thing was very exciting is the Economic Development Committee met last night for the first time. Wonderful group of people. It was a great conversation. The chair is Ken Topolsky, the vice chair is Richard Fields, and the secretary is James Oliger. They talked about trying to come up with strategies to encourage economic development and how they can support people that are already here. And like I said, it was a very energetic group. So I'm looking forward to a lot of good things coming out of that group. Today, I met with the Justice Court and reviewed records ending in 2024. The audit forms will be circulated for town board review, and we would like to add the next meeting's agenda to approve those forms. And that is, unless you want to hear about the toilet paper crisis or any of those
No,
other
it's
things,
better not, I think.
I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay, we turn it over to you, Dawn.
Hey, so good evening. I'd like to begin the evening off with just some housekeeping of the approval of our prior meeting minutes that have been circulated. So we're talking about our November 21st minutes, December 5th, December 19th, and January 2nd. And thank you, Leo, for pointing out the R and the Y that was missing on masonry and not just mason. So with that being said,
Now, all those years in architecture school, at least
I
I
mean, you
learned
should know
something.
that's what we're looking to do at Fountain Spare. So is there a motion to accept those minutes?
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
I can second. Oh,
Lee-
sorry, go ahead. You.
I'll second it.
Paul? Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Just so everybody knows, thank you for that. This past month, I know usually we do this at our first January meeting, but we did have some money in December that I collected. And I report this evening that for the month of December of 2024, Town Clerk's Office collected for our state, county, and local revenues $596.95, remitting to the supervisor $572.95. You also see in your packets that we had our decals, which is our DEC licensing. So for the year of 2024, we collected $9,771, and the town share that has been remitted and deposited in your accounts is $424.63. So that does show you guys the remaining balance that we work for DEC is the $9,346.37. Favorite part of the evening is as your tax collector. Here we go, one more time, the second time in our minutes. It's going to show your notice of your tax roll and warrant for 2025. Take notice that I, Dawn Marie Kligner, collector of the taxes here in the town of Amenia, Dutchess County, state of New York, have duly received the tax roll and warrant for the collection of taxes within the town of Amenia for the year 2025, and that I will attend 4988 Route 22 Amenia from January 2nd, 2025 through February 28th, 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the afternoon each day, excepting Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, as well as our holidays for the purposes of receiving taxes on the tax said roll. Take further notice that taxes may be paid on or before February 28th. All taxes received after such date shall be an addition of 1% for each additional month or fraction thereof until taxes are paid or until returned to the unpaid taxes to the county treasurer. So from now until February 28th, 0% penalty. March 1st through March 31st, 2% penalty. April 1st through April 30th, 3% penalty. May 1st through June 2nd, 4% penalty. June 1st until settlement with the county treasurer, 5%. In addition, after May 15th, a fee of $2 for each is added for each parcel. So pursuant to the tax laws, that the tax roll of the town of Amenia will be returned to the county treasurer of the county of Dutchess on the second day of June. So everybody knows, and this is the second time I've read it, it's been published in our Millerton News 2 consecutive times, that on December 27th, I personally picked up those taxes and the rolls, came back to the town hall, applied postage, and mailed them. If you are a person who pays your taxes by yourself through your checking account, your credit card, or your debit card, you should have your tax bill. If you do not have your tax bill, you can visit ameniany.gov, view, pay, print your receipt, right? Anytime, day, noon, or night. If you do not have access to the internet, please stop here at the town hall. We will be happy to give you a duplicate copy of your tax bill. So tax bills have been noticed and circulated. You guys have to pay some bills and give the supervisor permission to pay those bills. So we've all had the opportunity to review those the vouchers and present it on the abstract. And I'm presenting this evening a total amount of $316,215.95. And if we do our breakdown, General Fund A, $233,745.77. Highway Fund, $71,809.52. Amenia Lighting, $1,164.35. Wasake Lighting, $444.28. Amenia Water, $9,052.03. So at this time, I'm seeking if there's a motion to authorize the supervisor to pay claims as presented.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Sure.
Sure, thanks, Paul. So casual about it. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Great. With some regret, though, I do have to present two resignations. James Olinger did present his resignation for the Enhancement Committee at the start of, well, it was December. I tried to convince him to stay. I wasn't very successful, so we do have to accept that. And then I'm also presenting Jessica McRoberts. Unfortunately, she's not going to be able to accept the Recreation Supervisor's position. So I do need the acceptance of those resignations.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Supervisor?
Yes.
Council members? Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
And I'm also seeking authorization to go ahead and advertise
For
for both of those, as well as the only thing that was left open was our wastewater. There was one vacant seat. So I'd just like to do all those.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Nicole.
I'll second.
Thanks, Paul. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Of course, we know we talked about it last meeting because I can't get enough of it. We do have our blood drive coming up here. So the next time you'll see us, it would be the day before. Everybody's going to be exhausted because they would have come in the night before and donated their blood. So our next blood drive here at the Amenia Town Hall is Wednesday, February 5th. And it's from 3 to 7:30. You'll see that the flyers are starting to be posted up around Town Hall. Chris, myself, and Zach will get them out around town. You can also find it on Facebook. It's really cool. There's this QR code. So if you guys are coming to Pancake Breakfast this Sunday, this flyer is there at the firehouse. You can just take your phone and put your picture thing on it and opens it up, and you can reserve your time.
So
how cool is that?
Question for all us iron deficient people that want to give blood, because
So you're gonna have some
you
steak?
barely fail it.
Start having some good steak.
What
you know,
day? Like the week before?
2 days before.
2 days before.
Oh, okay.
But I want you to also drink some fluids too. So fill up with water, get your blood
We're pushing it
going.
here.
This is a great, because you never
Allergic to
know,
water.
cause. This is one of the best things we can do as humans, is to donate blood, save a life, help a family member, a loved one, or the person you just don't know. This is, it's a personal cause to the Kligner family, as we all know, but it's just a really good thing for us as humans. So do that, donate. And with that also being said, I'd like to acknowledge receipt and circulation, and they've been posted to our report that was online. We have our water district report that was in our packets, our building department report totaling $18,603.50. You also saw that we have the circulation of our zoning issues has been circulated, and Megan was able to get a last-minute highway report to us saying how mild winter has been thus far. She's had some truck repair work done, and grader had broken down, so they had to get that fixed. So all of those reports are posted on our website, part of the new consent movement of our agenda as we move forward. So
Right.
there you go.
Nicole, do you want to say anything about rec and the new person starting? Who I met yesterday. Seems
Well, I want to
very nice.
congratulate Judy, because I think she was appointed chair for this year.
Oh, congratulations. I didn't realize. Okay.
And
Well, do you
Paul,
want,
you can,
Well,
go ahead.
Well, let her do it during the rec commission report.
That's right now.
That's what it's right now.
There you go.
Okay, so we met last night, and Paul Bogan, who was our, one of our recreation supervisors, who's still there, has hit the ground running and is doing quite a lot, so we're happy with that. We discussed, he is working on booking bands for the music series. We also discussed having the music series at Beekman Park this year, and a majority of the commission was in favor of that, so we're excited about that, and looking forward to working that out. We'll have to come up with plans, and we'd like to see about getting a raised platform stage, but it would be good if it could be one that we can keep, since it would be going back there. It'll definitely alleviate the parking problems of people. If people want to come, they're not going to have to park far away and walk. We also discussed the fact that food trucks could come if it was at Beekman Park, but that brought up another discussion, and we'd like to ask the town board to consider passing a local law to regulate food trucks, to make sure that any of them that come are in compliance, and that we don't have to worry about any problems that might arise if they're not. Let's see. Okay, there's that. There's Silo Ridge. Paul had spoken to them earlier and sent a link, and the Silo Ridge presented a proposal to us for some nights of ice skating. Their suggestions were to start like Monday. We don't have enough time for that, but we're going to finalize with them which dates it's going to be and put out advertising, so hopefully people will sign up and we can get that going. It would be nice, it's nice to have it offered. It would be nice to see it happen. There's also apparently platform tennis up there, which people could use at least during light hours. The skating has lighting available, the platform tennis does not. But we'll get something out. We're going to be working on that this weekend, and we'll get something posted on the rec website so that we can take care of that. And we're also discussing setting up some simple rules for usage. We're trying to get new programs into the town and possibly to coordinate with the school and see if we can use those facilities if we have a night where we can't do it here. So we just want to make up a little set of rules that we can hand to people when they have an activity that they're bringing in, saying, make sure if you're going to open the window, close it when it's done, just what we expect in terms of the facilities and the decorum and the way we treat the town hall. So, and then we can hand that out to people. So that's pretty much it for anything significant.
Lifeguards.
Great.
Lifeguards.
Yes, we need to, well, actually, I was thinking you were going to bring that up at the end, but we did find out last time you told us that we had the lifeguard positions available. We need to ask the town board, we need to come up with a rate and then advertise, so we'll need to ask the town clerk to advertise. We think it is useful to advertise and get people in before we go to Maplebrook and say, okay, which nights can we have here? Because if we don't have any lifeguards, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. So if we can get that underway, that would be good. Now that's it, thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Do you want to make that motion, Roseanne?
What?
Did you?
Would you like to make that motion
She's speaking to
Oh,
you.
yes.
to you?
You want to make it?
It doesn't matter. We're making a motion to put.
Authorized for lifeguards?
Yes.
Do you know
Wait, I didn't hear that.
cost?
Lifeguards.
We're going to need a salary.
Oh, we
You
have
guys
to
want
have
it
that
for the next
before?
meeting, you can be maybe a little bit more formal, or if you guys know the line and how much, because that's, we have to let the.
I did speak with Marge, and she said it could actually go under the summer
Summer
camp line, and there is actually no money there, but it could be transferred in from someplace in the rec. Now, one of the concerns that the rec commission had, which was a legitimate one, was the fact that, this is not a free program, so people that were swimming would pay a fee to swim. That fee would then be used to pay for the lifeguards. So the money would go into a revenue area in the recreation budget.
So all I was looking for is, in order to advertise for the position, we need to know what their hourly rate is. In regards to setting up the fees, that's another thing we can do. That's a separate issue. There's
So
two
we have
separate
to-
issues.
so we
I
have to wait
understand what
until
you're
we have
saying.
the
The fees
fees
that come
figured
in
out.
are gonna, were you guys looking to offset the
So we have
budget
to
line?
have the rate figured out
But
before
you
we
need
can
to
have
have
you
the
post it.
rates
Right.
figured out.
Okay.
We don't know what to charge and we don't know what's costing.
So if you
Well,
want to maybe touch base with Charlie, who might
Typically-
have the comparison of what lifeguards are currently making, if that would be of help to you?
They're making about between $21 and $25 an hour.
So Ian, is that something the board needs to decide, or is that something the rec committee can decide?
So the rec committee wants to hire a lifeguard. Town board controls funds on that, so the town board would have to determine. Rec certainly should present, I would say do the legwork, present the budget and salary, hourly rate that they're looking to pay for it. Board makes a motion, we advertise, and we get somebody in there.
We will, I can go up there if you want, but I'll speak louder.
Nope, you're getting
You gotta-
gestures,
go up.
rude gestures from the back of the room.
We will work up a statement of what we want and what we expect to happen, and we'll send that out by the beginning of next week so that it can go on the next meeting, okay?
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, we get to the much-awaited discussion items. The first one was extending the term for supervisor and term limits for board members. I think it makes sense to discuss that and see, maybe do a motion as to where we go with this before Ian starts drafting something. Do you want to explain what you
So I
have in mind?
circulated to the town board a couple weeks ago the original discussion of extending the term for the supervisor from 2 years to 4 years for the reason of it seems like the supervisor is constantly running for election and they don't really have time to govern. Term limits, as was mentioned before, I ran against someone who had been up here for 20 years. I ran on the idea of limiting term limits to 12 or 16 years. I think 16 years is more than enough time for anyone to be involved within the community and making decisions for the community. More than that, it's just, we're a country that was founded on the idea of part-time leadership, right? We limited our president to 2 terms, 8 years. That makes sense to me. We don't need somebody up here for 20, 30 years directing this town. That's where this idea comes from. 16 years, if you can't get done what you need to get done in 16 years, then maybe you should move along and find a different profession anyway. This is not a professional sport, so to speak, in my eyes. You're here to serve the community and help it move forward as much as possible, and you should move along and have someone else do it.
Okay. Anyone else have comments?
Yeah, I actually do. So in 2016, there was a vote on the ballot to make both the town clerk 4 years and the supervisor 4 years. The vote for town clerk was yes, 703 votes, no, 683 votes. So basically, that won by 20 votes. However, with the supervisor, the yes votes were 530, the no votes were 846, which is a difference of 316. So overwhelmingly, it was voted down. And I think there are a lot of reasons for that. So that's one thing. As far as the term limits are concerned, most of the towns around us do not have term limits. Paul mentioned that he took the place of someone who was in for 20 years. Obviously, the voting system worked. People were tired or for whatever reason, and they voted somebody new in. I think that needs to be up to the voters. To remove somebody from office that is highly qualified, I think it really hurts. I think people are more responsive if they know they have to vote, be voted in again. Also in a small town like Amenia, a lot of people that were on the town board for a long time were there because nobody ran against them. So when you start having term limits and somebody's automatically, even if they're stellar, they have to be off the board, and then you can get somebody who maybe is not the most popular person in the world or does not going to do the best job in the world, and he's the only one that's running, he or she is the only one that's running. So I think that's a real problem, especially in a small town. And my other question is, how many times have we had over the course of all the time that Amenia has been in existence, have we had anybody that's been here for 16 or 20 years? I don't think there's a whole lot of them that have. So, when we do something like this, first of all, if we do something like this, I think it should be during a presidential election, not during a local election, if you're going to put it on the ballot, because more people are voting, number one. Number two, I really don't see the need for it, and I really have some real concerns about restrict, oh, the other person is somebody who's young. We talk about wanting young people. So somebody comes in, they're 30, 31, 32, and they're at the ripe old age of like 50, and you say, you're gone, even if they did an amazing job. So, you know, I really, really do not see the need, and I think I'm really concerned about the fact that it really may hurt us to have term limits.
Nicole, do you have something to say?
I actually was surprised by those numbers about the supervisor, because that was the one part I actually was definitely for, was 4 years for supervisor. I think it should be the same as board members, but not to make it personal, but term limits I was not for because of myself. 36, and in 16 years I might still want to be doing it. So I don't want to cut anybody short on that. And as she said, voters will vote if they want change.
Well, I agree with you. I know being supervisor for, well, I've only been supervisor for 1 year, but it does take a while to learn the ropes. So it's not a terrible idea. I suppose the same person can run a second time and be elected. But so I don't have a problem with that. But I do think that term limits for town board, to me, seem somewhat undemocratic because, first of all, there's no precedent. I mean, as far as I know, Victoria is our longest serving supervisor, and that was 10 years, I think? 10 years?
8 for
12?
supervisor.
No, 18 years.
Oh, she was on the board.
And then
18 years.
Board total, but not as supervisor.
No, but I mean as
Right.
supervisor, it was 10 or 12? 10?
it was 8,
8?
right?
No, 12.
12.
Oh,
Well, let's split the difference. Let's say 10 years. But in any event, that doesn't happen very often. And I do feel like the whole point of democracy is for people to actually vote and make the decision themselves. You know, I don't, I just think the voters are intelligent enough to make that decision themselves. If they want to change, they make a change. And I think it's a little, I mean, I'm a little bothered by the idea of us imposing a term limit, especially because in this town it's been very hard to get people to serve at all, and very often people, you know, there's not a second candidate.
So what I'm proposing here is 2 separate ideas to be put before the voters, the intelligent voters, to vote on it. That's what you're saying. They're intelligent enough to vote whether someone stays or go. They should be intelligent enough to vote whether we have term limits or not as well.
And in 2016, they made the intelligent vote by 360
Oh, so we
On-
already,
on-
so
on-
that's been
on-
decided, you mean?
On the extension of
the supervisor.
the supervisor, not on term limits. The residents that I have spoken with, and I ran on this, and it was part of me being elected,
I know.
they wanted term limits. I'm asking for it to be put before the voters to choose.
Okay. Well, I'd make a motion that we don't move ahead with this because I mean, I think drafting this, what? Well, it does cost money for the legal part of it, but I mean, I just don't see the need for this. I mean, I think that it's like setting something in stone that should not be in stone, and I think we have to trust the voters in the future to make these decisions. And, you know, I just think we should leave that alone. I mean, I'm not opposed to the supervisor term if people feel strongly about that, but I certainly am opposed to establishing term limits. So,
can they be separated out?
yes, they should be separated out. So I'd make,
That's what I
So you
propose.
just need to clarify your motion. I'm sorry.
I was
just-
going to.
Okay, because you said I make a motion that we don't
Oh,
move
I
ahead.
did?
Yeah, you have to use caution with your
Yeah, that's never going to happen. So the,
10 more months, we got it.
I would, right, I would make a motion that we put the supervisor, a 4-year term for the supervisor up for a public vote. So do I have a second? Oh, you asked that, Dawn.
No, I mean, your friends can second your motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second
Thank you.
that.
That's a Nicole. Okay,
And,
so
yes,
the motion is to put the position up for a 4-year supervisor. Is that what we're
Right.
trying to say? For
Discussion.
public-
I wasn't clear?
No, I'm just
Yeah,
making
I
sure,
know.
that's the only thing we're voting on, but
Yes,
Ian wants to
discussion.
add to
Yeah,
yours.
I just want to clarify, the motion is to basically authorize council to draft a local law that would be subject to a mandatory referendum to extend the supervisor's term from 2 years to 4 years.
And
That sounded much clearer.
And that would be put before the voters. If we're going to already have this, I'm asking for discussion because there was a second. If we're going to already put this before the voters, why would we not put both items before the voters instead of just one or the other? That makes no sense
We're
whatsoever.
going to amend it. He's going to make an amendment of his motion.
Well. Go ahead.
So,
My discussion part's over.
okay, so because you guys are going to be voting on something, the attorney clarified your motion for you. So are you amending your motion to read the way that the attorney has presented it for you?
Sure, it made much more sense.
Also, I do have a point I wanted to ask. So you're talking about this election?
That's,
What one?
need a second on it.
Oh, second, I'll second that, sorry.
Thank you.
No, I thought
The
you-
amendment to what, yes, sorry.
Okay, then my question is,
So
which,
we should vote on the amendment then, since we're going to really do it properly.
Yes.
Does everybody understand what's happening?
Yes.
We're amending his
Yes.
motion? Okay. Supervisor?
Yes.
Yes.
Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
no.
Yes.
Nicole? You go back to the original.
Oh, the second motion that I'm sure Ian will correct for me. What?
I'm right. Am I right?
We just,
You
yes,
amended it, so
we
now we
amended it.
have to,
Now you still have an open question. So you're,
they're gonna, either he's gonna withdraw it, or he's gonna vote, everybody's gonna vote no. Because we've already accepted your motion
as amended.
as amended.
Correct. So there's discussion on the motion.
Now we're on
as
the
amended.
real discussion.
So now we have to have a discussion.
You've
If you
essentially
choose.
already had the discussion.
You already had your discussion.
now-
So what
now-
happened is you
so I
amended
make
it.
a motion to present to the, as a public referendum.
So we're gonna
for the
vote yes?
16
The motion, you're basically, you're
Get the vote
voting
twice.
now on the motion as I stated it.
Okay.
Wait, we just yesed his amending.
Amending it, now
Yeah.
that's the actual question.
Now that's
before
what
Now
we're
we have to
voting on.
correct
The
it.
board
Yeah.
needs to vote.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
I know it's a lot, I'm sorry. Council member, start with Supervisor Blackman.
Yes.
Council members, Winters?
Yes.
And now I'm confused because I'm not sure exactly what we're voting on.
It's basically the same thing.
On
Yeah,
Ian's
Okay, so
version of
basically,
what I
we're-
said.
You're
to-
voting on the
to put
motion
up
I
for a
made.
vote, 4 years for the supervisor.
Yes.
basically.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. It does pass. So now council has been authorized to prepare the local law
For 4-year
to
term.
To
require
extend the term from 2 to 4 years for
For
supervisor.
referendum.
to be, for
It's a local law
mandatory.
that's subject to a mandatory referendum. It
Okay.
has to go to a ballot. There will be a ballot proposition that will go
Great.
with that.
So now do I propose my 16 years?
So that means that there could be a petition to,
No,
No.
it's a mandatory referendum. It's going
It
to
has to
ballot.
go to the vote.
So a permissive, if it were a permissive referendum, someone
Got
would
it.
file a petition,
Okay.
then it would have to go to a ballot. Here it goes. It's gonna, there will be a ballot proposition that will have to be submitted.
So-
And then it goes to the voters.
I propose that we have the town attorney prepare a local law creating 16-year term limits for the town board by public referendum. Is that correct? Or we need to clarify that?
Well, I have a comment on that before we go too far on that, because the local law to extend the supervisor's term from 2-year to 4-year is subject to a mandatory referendum. Term limits, consecutive term limits, is not subject to a mandatory referendum. Therefore, it is subject to a town board vote. So the board would have to vote now to pass or direct me to draft a local law, which we would then go through the process of a local law. So if the board does not want to pursue consecutive term limits, then they would vote right now no, and then I don't prepare the law. Or if the board wants me to prepare the law, we have public hearings and they can be passed at that point, then that's that's the process for that particular law.
Can we shortcut it and just go directly to asking for you to create a public referendum law?
You just said it can't be.
Yeah, it's not. It's not subject
It's
to.
not.
Okay, all right.
So basically that,
Okay.
to create term limits of 16 years, 12 years,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, that's simply a local law. So the board, if they want me to prepare it, then I'll prepare it. But I think the board should have a vote on that so we don't waste the time and effort of me preparing
Sure.
a law for, that's not.
So I propose a resolution asking the town attorney to prepare what he just described.
A local,
Is there a second?
a local law,
Yes.
a local law for consecutive term limits of 16 years.
16
So it
years.
would be 4 terms.
Okay. Is there a second on that? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, well, there we go. So next discussion item is the procurement policy. Did people, I mean, I'd actually like a little more time on that. I mean, I did go through it and had questions, but,
Yeah,
If I can, we've circulated this,
Before,
it's kind of been
it's-
floating around, so we brought it back up again. What I would suggest is, the board is certainly welcome to talk about it now, but if there is comments from individual board members that would like me to make edits or amendments to this, so we can have a more final document to discuss, I'd be willing to do that as a suggestion to the board now, or if the board wants to hash it out, they can do that and then submit any of these, the final changes or edits to the procurement policy to me in writing, and then I'll edit it.
I guess I prefer doing it that way unless anyone is ready to.
Well, I do have a comment, comment question. I did go through it, and is there, but I missed it, and I have to admit, I went through it quickly. Is there a provision in there that has any kind of encouragement to use local vendors? The reason I'm asking is last night at the Economic Development Committee, one of the things that was mentioned was that they would like to use, and they are actually going to try to develop a list of local vendors.
So one of the reasons and purposes behind a procurement policy is to prevent a favoritism. It's there to present a blind, honest bid for the best quotes that you can get. If you are going to favor local bidders, you may not be in that situation. Now, under the law, quotes that come in, you have a best value law currently in your code. It's required in order to select a vendor based on best value. And that could be one aspect of the analysis upon which you would choose a vendor that was more locally present, because somebody who's more local can get the job done quicker. They have a better idea of the locality, of what's going on. They could have a number of different reasons why you would choose that person, even though they are not the lowest bid. Again, you're choosing the lowest responsible bidder. That doesn't necessarily always mean the lowest bidder. So
Okay.
there are reasons why you may choose somebody who's more locally based, but in my opinion, to have it as a policy, I think is contrary to the intent of the law.
Okay, so that is covered under that the portion where it talks about reasons why you might not take the lowest.
Like I said, there's best value, which is an analysis, and you also have lowest responsible bidder.
Okay.
Which is why, built into the resolutions, we generally have language in there why we're selecting those bidders.
And I had a question about, it didn't seem clear to me, at what point these purchases need to go before the board for a vote. I didn't see a bright line, as they say, and I just wanted to make sure that we, if there isn't one, that we kind of explain how that decision gets made.
So The procurement policy is there. It's a somewhat difficult question to ask because each department might be different on how they're handling it, right? So, i.e., if there's a budgeted expense, i.e., let's say highway, they have a budget for certain items. They can purchase, so long as they follow the procurement policy, right? They get their quotes, they make the purchase. That quote goes to a voucher. That voucher then gets submitted to
The bookkeeper.
bookkeeper,
And then the
treasurer,
board, right.
however you have it set up. But it would come into the town, they look and verify that they have the requirements, which are also built into this procurement policy. There's a follow-up, so there is kind of a checks and balance to it. So there is a verification process by which you would make sure that they've obtained their quotes, their 3 quotes, and they complied with the procurement policy and selected the lowest bidder.
Right.
So those types of purchases, some don't have to come before the board. If it's not a budgeted expense and it's outside of the budget, then you would have to come to the board and the board would vote on it. If it's the town board doing it,
Right.
then the town board generally will approve their expenditures through a voucher if we're hiring whoever it might be. And so, and if you're doing larger projects, you would have to go to, you'd be responsible to competitively bid if it exceeds the thresholds under the GML. So, general municipal.
Right, so when it's competitively bid,
Then you're going out to a bid process. That's even beyond your procurement policy. So your procurement policy is regulating purchases that are going to be beneath the thresholds, 20,000 and 35,000. All right, and then we create steps in here so we can make sure that we're, on our smaller purchases, that we're getting the best bid or the lowest quote that we possibly can. And it creates a process for that. That's all that is.
I guess I'd suggest that we send you questions or thoughts on this and have
Sure.
you do a more developed version. Does that make sense to people? Do we need a motion or can we just tell you that? No, okay, good.
No, send me comments and I can adjust and then we'll present it again and, any adjustments you guys want to make, I'll make.
Great, thank you. So, does anyone else have anything to say on that subject?
No.
Okay. The next is the Community Development Block Grant. So this is a program that is basically, it's money that's distributed from the federal government and is controlled by Dutchess County. And they make the sum of money they receive, they distribute to towns within the county, based on towns sending in a proposal for a project. The projects that are supposed to be paid for from this are infrastructure, housing, and accessibility. I believe that a typical grant is $150,000 to $200,000. So every year we submit an application for this money for a specific project. I know that Victoria in the past has tried to get the playground equipment repaired or replaced, but I think that maybe the reason this keeps getting rejected is because it isn't in one of those categories. But I think we need to think about and discuss what we might want to spend it on, because I want to see the play equipment done too. But I'm
I
not
actually
sure this is
just
the right
sent a
grant.
quote to Judy from somebody that had reached out, that Katie was talking with about getting quotes for Beekman, and it was like, I think the material cost was 50% off. At the time, they were doing a promotion through Little Tykes. And he's called me the other day and asked if we were still interested. And I said, well, can you hold true on that quote we got last
Right.
year? Because that promotion's over.
Right.
And he said that they could potentially.
Yeah, that's exciting.
So I'm hoping, so that is on our radar, Beekman Park, about
Okay.
replacing that equipment.
Something I've learned about with grants, a lot of times they don't want to give grants for repairs, they'll give grants for
No,
grants.
this is to replace.
But that would be a
Yeah.
replacement, but that isn't my point.
But that's from the vendor. I'm talking about grants from the state. They most often don't like to give grants for repairs, but they'll, for some reason, but they'll pay for
But we're
brand
looking
new
to
stuff.
replace.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, this is a whole new playground.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
One of the things that he talked about, though, the night that Paul, I can't remember his last name, when he was talking about this, he said, one of the things that may have been is it has to be, you have to be able to prove that it's serving largely low and middle income families.
Right.
And
Oh,
that's a
we can
huge
prove
piece.
that.
And like I said, the focus was actually on, like with housing, like rehabilitating buildings and not building new buildings. And because they all already have to be ADA.
Right.
And so they really have some pretty strict guidelines, and
Amenia has a 13% property level. This is the
Until the
code.
next census.
And Wassaic has a 26% property level, according
for
to
some reason I thought it was
recreations.
51% that they said.
What's that?
I thought he said it had to be 51%.
Well, I'm just saying what the poverty level is according to New York State in this area, so that considers us a disadvantaged community.
Right, but we have to move fast because when Silo
No,
kicks in the census.
it used to be 18% for the Amenia, and then once the silo numbers came on, it dropped to 13%.
Right, but it's, what I'm saying is that that's based on the census, census data, so in
2030.
2030, we
It'll
may no
change
longer
again.
be eligible.
Well,
so-
not this zip code, but it doesn't look like Wassaic changing anytime soon.
Okay. So I thought that, well, the first thing is that we need to send a letter of intent to Dutchess County on the 3rd of February, which is before our next meeting. But I don't think, I'm double checking this. Do you know this? I'm not sure that we need to identify a project. It just said, I think it's just saying that we plan to apply.
I
Does that sound
think we
right?
do, because they have to approve the letter of intent.
Wait, yeah,
So the letter of intent is sent, and I think you have to name what your project is in the letter
Oh.
of intent, because if they don't approve the letter of intent, then they're not going to, then there's no point to apply.
oh, Deidre was shaking her head no too.
I don't know, but I can email the Commissioner of Planning and when we get a response.
It would be great to know.
Yeah.
But in any event, I mean, I think that we should
Do that.
Letter of intent is
discuss-
determine if you're eligible for the actual particular grant that you're applying for.
I'd say it's required to hold a public hearing to discuss.
yes, so
Prior to-
the soonest public hearing would be February 7th. But it doesn't have to be before you submit the letter of intent. I did go on the website today.
Right.
Anyway.
It has to be before the application, though, or it will be immediately
Correct.
disqualified.
Right,
It's
right,
part
right,
of the,
right.
part of the
So-
requirement is to hold a public hearing before you submit the application before March 6th, I believe it is.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to say
Third.
it's gonna be. You just have to say
Are we moving? What's the next thing?
I just want to say that we should think about this. I mean, one thing that occurred to me is the electric infrastructure work at Fountain Square might be something that we could use the money for. I still would love to see a sidewalk to Freshtown, but that's way more money. I mean, that really wouldn't impact that. We don't have downtown pedestrian improvements in any sort of sketch form even, so we can't do that. But again, I just think we need to think about projects of infrastructure, housing, or accessibility that are going to benefit low and medium income residents of the town. So I think we better start emailing each other so we can discuss this at the next meeting.
Okay.
And if I find out that we have to have a proposal to go with a letter of intent, I'll let you all know. Okay, so now we move on to resolutions. I'm sorry,
Resolution
I'm
number,
just-
We're starting with 22.
what is it?
22.
22?
Oops, sorry.
You want me to read it?
Sure, why not?
Resolution number 22 of 2025, authorizing letter of intent and setting public hearing on intended use of community development block grant funds for the fiscal year 2025. Whereas the town of Amenia is a participant in the Dutchess County Urban Consortium for the Community Development Block Program for the fiscal year 2025, and whereas the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development soliciting applications for the 2025 Community Development Block Grant and Program, and whereas the town of Amenia intends to make an application for a Community Development Block Grant pursuant to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Developmental's Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal year 2025, and whereas the town is required to submit a letter of intent to the county on or before February 3rd, 2025, and whereas the town of Amenia is required to hold a public hearing to discuss the intended use of the Community Development Block Grant funds prior to and furtherance of the making an application for said funds. Now, therefore, it be resolved as follows. The citation set before above are incorporated into this resolution and set fully forth and adopted therein, and town board is hereby authorized to draft and submit a letter of intent to the county on or before February 3rd, 2025. The town board hereby schedules a public hearing to be held at the Town Hall, Town of Amenia, 4988 Route 22, Amenia, New York, 12501 on the 6th day of February at 7 p.m. and at such time all parties and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard as to the grant proposal for the Community Development Block Grant Funds being applied by the town of Amenia for fiscal year 2025. The town clerk is hereby directed to publish and post the notice of public hearing in the form annexed hereto at least 5 days prior to the scheduled public hearing and posted on the same town website, signed board maintained by the town clerk. I make that motion.
You read very fast, Paul. I'll second that.
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmembers Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Resolution number 23.
I didn't just hand it out to you.
Resolution number 23 of 2025, approving the carryover of unused vacation time, whereas pursuant to the town of Amenia employee handbook, of full-time and part-time employees paid on an hourly basis and regularly scheduled to work at least 15 hours per week and are eligible for paid vacation leave, and whereas an eligible employee may carry over vacation leave from 1 year to the next with the approval of their department head, and whereas such department head must report all approved vacation leave carryover to the secretary to the supervisor, and whereas the secretary to the supervisor has received the following approvals requests for the vacation leave carryover, which are annexed hereto and made a part hereof. Now therefore it be resolved as follows. The recitation set before it above are incorporated in this resolution as a fully set forth and adopted here, and the town board hereby approves and requests received unto the Secretary of the Supervisor's Office to carry over vacation accruals from 2024, which annexed hereto. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Councilmembers Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
You want to do the next one?
Sure, why
Take a
not?
break.
Warned to a knob. Resolution number 24 of 2025, authorizing an increase in salary for typist to supervisor, whereas the Town of Amenia Town Board at their January 2nd, 2025 reorganizational meeting appointed Nancy Nowak as the typist to the supervisor at the hourly rate of $18, and whereas the typist to the supervisor position is a part-time non-competitive position consisting of no more than 20 hours per week pursuant to the rules for the classified civil service of Dutchess County, and whereas the supervisor eliminated the position of confidential secretary to the supervisor, and the typist of supervisor has absorbed part of their responsibilities, and whereas the town board has agreed to increase Nancy Nowak's salary from $18 per hour to $18.75 per hour for the additional responsibilities. Now, therefore, it be resolved as follows: the recitations set forth above are incorporated in this resolution as if fully set forth and adopted herein. 2, the town board hereby authorizes an increase in Nancy Nowak's salary from $18 per hour to $18.75 per hour for performing the aforementioned additional responsibilities. 4, the town supervisor and bookkeeper are hereby authorized and directed to file any and all documents with the Dutchess County Department of Human Resources to effectuate the terms of this resolution. I'll make that motion.
I'd actually like to table this
You can't-
for discussion.
you can't.
Yes, I
Somebody
can.
somebody has to second
Already
it
made the
before you
motion.
can ask for discussion.
I'll second it.
So there's
Now
a
you-
second.
Okay.
Now you ask for discussion.
So there's a discussion.
There's a discussion, but I'd like to table it because we have not been able to have a discussion on this, and it should be done in executive session after this meeting.
Okay, well, we are going to have executive session after this meeting, so.
So I'd like to table this then
we are?
until then.
Yes, there are a few things that, I mean.
Oh, it
I
wasn't
know
there,
it
so
wasn't
I
on.
had other plans after.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
there you go. Well, anyway, I don't have a problem with having a conversation about it.
Yeah, you had asked for discussion on this, and we hadn't had one.
Right. Okay. I mean, we can do that, and actually, we could come back from executive session if we, feel we need to vote on this now.
Okay.
But I think I'm fine with, tabling it and discussing it in executive session. I don't know where that leaves us in this voting process.
Means you're going to just withdraw your motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you. I'll second that.
That was easier than I thought. Okay, so we will come back to that. Other matters?
No, you have resolution number 20,
Yeah, there's another
Five.
resolution here somewhere.
How did that happen?
here, I'll do it. So, resolution number 25 of 2025, transfer of funds for December 2024. Number 3, whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary or unanticipated to amend the budget, and whereas the budget amendment in the general fund increasing 14204.01 attorney CE by $15,626.80 and decrease 14404.01 engineer CE by $15,626.80. Whereas the budget amendment in the general fund increasing 16704.01.61 central print mail illegals by $33 and increase 16704.01.68 by $2,046.26 and increase 16804.01 by $269.79 and decrease 19104.01.80 by $2,349.53, and whereas the budget amendment in the general fund increasing 71104.01 by $2,474.70 and increase 71104.01.89 by $61.98 and decrease 71454.01.30 by $2,536.68, whereas the budget amendment in the highway fund increasing 51304.03.36 by $1,094.67 and decrease 51424.03 by $1,094.67. Now therefore be resolved by the town board to authorize the transfer of necessary budget lines to process transactions.
Before you make that motion, it's just going to, just so you know, it's resolution 24 because the prior one
I'm
was
sorry.
withdrawn. No, that's
Oh,
okay.
okay,
I
all
just-
right, I got you.
Just so you know, you're making a motion for 24.
24 because
Thank you.
the
Sorry.
prior one was
Oh,
withdrawn.
I see.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thanks, Nicole. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Okay. So do people have other matters they want to bring up now?
Actually, I do.
Thank you, Rosanna. Okay.
As I said, last night, we had the meeting for the Economic Development Committee, and we had discussed about amending the law for committees. Are we still going to do that? The fact, I mean, there's some concern about all of the terms expire at the same time. They're only 2 years. They're only 2 years long, and there are some things in there. So, and the other question I have is does this law apply to all new committees? I mean, any committee is just, does this apply to all new committees that are created?
The law as drafted applies to all ad hoc committees, yes. Going forward, it would apply to all. If you want to amend it, you can amend it. There's the amendments just, if the board wants to, I would state that you should put it for a discussion item as to what you want to amend, and if the board chooses to do so, they let me know what you want to change, and I'll set it up.
I would like to, and I don't know how you would do this, but I would like to kind of stagger the terms, the length of the terms. To have a whole committee just disappear after 2 years or have to, reappoint after 2 years.
Yeah, because it doesn't disappear. They just have to be reappointed by the board. It's just a reappointment by the board. So the board has full control of who stays, doesn't stay. It's an appointment.
Right, but it's not set up in a way where automatically there's a rotation. In other words, where one person leaves every however many years so that there's sort of continuity of knowledge on the committee. I think that's what that was about originally.
Yeah, I mean, there's no consecutive term limit for for each anybody's on the committee. So the board has full authority, full power to reappoint whomever they want to the board. So if you have whatever it is, if you have 5 people on a board and you want to reappoint somebody different, you can every year. Well, 2 years at the full.
Rosanna, why don't you make a specific proposal at the next meeting?
Okay.
And I'm happy to help if you would like, and then we can turn that into a resolution if everyone, we can discuss
Okay.
the specifics of that.
Also, I just wanted to say, after reviewing my schedule, I will be able to attend AOT trainings and looking at what they're being offered, so I will be going
Okay, great, glad to hear that.
on Monday and Tuesday.
Okay, I'm even considering it myself.
Or is it
I'm feeling
17th and
left
18th?
out.
18th.
Are we talking about the one in
The
New York City?
February,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're coming, or,
I am going, yes.
okay, excellent. You riding with me or no?
No.
I'm sure that was a wise choice. Okay, so, did you have anything else under
No.
other matters? I had 2 things. First was the ideas solicitation for a simple new town logo has gotten a rip-roaring response of, I think, 2 entries. The term isn't up, so I want to encourage anyone who's interested in participating in that to get going. What was the
January
deadline?
29th. They still have some more time.
Oh, right, because I thought it was, yes. January 29th is the due date, the final due date. And I just want to make clear that if people are not artists, that I think what we're really trying to do is have people think about how Amenia should represent itself to the world. What is the most important feature, message, brand, and I guess also whether we're kind of looking for inspiration in terms of representing the town with something in the historic or something in the future. So anyway, so people are happy to just do that as a sentence if they don't want to do a drawing. But it would be nice to have more people to participate, and just send that in to Dawn Marie, our town supervisor, our town clerk, as soon as you can. I know, maybe at some point. All right, let's see. Was there anything else?
Rules?
Oh, rules and procedures. That isn't in our packet. Oh, is it in our packet?
It's not in my packet.
It's not in your packet, but I think we discussed printing or not printing today. So I looked at that.
So
and did
I had circulated, at last meeting, the board requested that I put together new rules and procedures for our meetings and workshops.
Right.
I did draft, I circulated it. Paul is the only one who provided a comment.
Yes, I
If there are additional comments, I would request that the board email them to me and we can edit, or if you want to discuss items of it now. I don't know if anybody has had a chance to really look at it or not, but I did draft and circulate it.
Yeah, I thank you, and I did go through it. I'm not sure if we want to have that discussion now. I don't know how long that would be. Paul doesn't want to have it now.
I already read it.
And you made your comment?
Yeah, made my
Okay.
comment.
It'll find me, I didn't comment, because I thought we weren't supposed to comment on the thread.
So
Ah,
if I email you something, you can't, email conversations, there are opinions that exist, that email conversations on comments discussing town board business on a reply all is discussing, it's discussing items in a non-open meeting, which is inappropriate. If I send you something and you have a comment and you reply to me, you're not discussing with the board, there's no quorum, it's not an open meeting.
you mean just to you and not
So
everyone?
just-
Correct.
so-
You- yeah,
So we
the
don't
board-
reply all, we reply just to you.
You can send your comments to me, I can make those edits, or those suggestions as we kind of fine tune the document to present it at a meeting where we can have public open conversation on it.
Okay, actually, then I'll just go through the few comments I had so that we don't have to drag this out. So under order of business, you have D, motion to accept agenda, and E, public comment on agenda items, and we don't do that now, so I wanted to ask what that was about or why.
So
you
if you're
felt
going to
that was
move to a
useful.
consent agenda, if any town board member would like to take something off
Oh, so that's
the consent
specifically for
agenda.
consent agenda?
It's, or if you're adding anything to the agenda, it would be a motion to accept the agenda as it is, or a motion to amend if you're going to add an item that
Oh,
may
right
not-
then and there.
Right? So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. All right,
Now,
that's
there's also
helpful.
provisions of what would be something that's permitted for that. You can't just add anything and everything, because then you're violating open meetings law. And it does set forth and describe what would be a quote-unquote emergency item that would have to be
Right.
put on it if there was something late.
And the public comment on agenda items first, and then the public comments on all business at the end. Does that make sense to everyone in terms of splitting it up that way?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it still- it still
I
makes
guess-
sense to me.
My only question was on resolutions. Are we still able to make motions and then go into discussion on resolution, like on that? Or
No, if
would
you have a
that be done-
consent agenda, what's on the consent agenda.
So then
right,
there's no discussion?
You would read each title of it, 1, 2, 3, 4 down, and you vote, and they're
Okay,
passed.
so if there's a problem, we need to address it with the motion to accept agenda.
Correct. So if
Okay.
the supervisor who puts together the agenda.
So if we don't like what he did, we have to say it
Correct.
then?
If you would, or you could do it ahead of time, and you could request, say,
A change or
email
something.
Leo,
Okay.
I need that resolution pulled from the consent agenda, I have an issue with that, and or something I want to discuss. Then that gets pulled, then it's, how we do it now.
I
Motion.
love this.
Good. For those of you who weren't at the last meeting, we are trying to move to consent agendas as much as we can, whereas all the information is going to be posted online on, was it Monday or Tuesday?
So that's the real big change with this, which will be an adjustment, I think, for the board,
Yeah.
is that there is a more strict order upon which the requests for resolutions are submitted. So as it sits now,
Yeah, can you handle by noon on Thursday?
noon on Thursday.
I'm going to pass it off to my secretary.
So noon on Thursday, that would be the Thursday before this meeting. Any
7 days before.
7 days before,
7 days
right?
before, I would need basically any request for a resolution with any documentation submitted with it. That would allow for basically Thursday afternoon, Friday, and Monday morning to review, inspect, to make sure we have all the documentation that we need, obtain it if we don't, draft the resolutions, and really set our agenda. So by noon on Monday, we would have the full agenda ready to go and out. And then the actual resolutions with any supporting documentation for those resolutions would then be posted on the website by Tuesday at noon, because that would give the public now a couple days to open, read, understand what's on there. It would also allow all of you to have the same access, and it would allow you to say, I have no issue with that, or hey, I need that pulled, I don't agree with that resolution, that needs to be discussed. And then that sets where we go. And then you follow consent agenda. If there are items that nobody has any issues with, and there's nothing that needs to really be discussed on it, we're on the consent agenda.
So this is the schedule for general resolutions or consent agenda? Because the
No, resolutions, you have a resolution section.
Yeah.
Under your resolutions, you have resolutions that'll be heard on consent.
Yeah.
Meaning there's no discussion. You just read the titles and you pass them. There's no discussion, there's no issue, everybody's in agreement, and it moves through.
I understand that, but there's nothing about the schedule for when stuff has to be submitted if it's going to be a consent agenda.
It's the same.
Oh, it's the same, that's what I asked.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it's the same.
great.
So
Okay.
basically, consent or non-consent is still a resolution. So the procedure of the Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, that's for all resolutions.
Okay, I had one minor question, which is, does anyone have any questions on that? I noticed that if an individual at the meeting violates the rules of decorum, that there was a whole series of steps that one could take, but it said that if the person does not remove himself or herself, the presiding officer may order him or her removed. And I wondered who was supposed to actually remove them?
If you anticipate a situation upon which there might be
Oh, so we
this
should plan,
situation,
okay.
you would, I've advised many boards to have a constable ready for the meeting.
Okay.
If you sense that there's going to be that type of an issue.
That was a very good solution.
It's kind of like whenever they had the craziness going on at the town board meetings the past couple of years, not here, but in other towns, and they had
Yeah.
actually.
There have been many
Okay,
other
I
towns.
just didn't want to be responsible for that by myself.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me just see.
You're not required to go up and throw them out there.
Okay, I wanted that to be clear. Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, I think that was all the stuff on this that I had questions about, so.
I tried to keep it in line with what we've already had. I did add a few different items particularly on decorum and some of the process of how we handle the meeting and identifying each of the new agenda headings. So to clarify them and keep it hopefully more clear, not less clear, so.
Okay, are people comfortable asking Ian to turn that into a resolution?
Yes.
Okay, so there we have it. Okay.
Do you have to make a motion to do that?
No. I'll just prepare a resolution for next meeting. So if there are any other specific requests for changes or edits, then let me know. But right now, there are none.
No.
Everybody's okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want a clarification on the discussion portion we had. So then if something is on there that we need to be, that needs to be discussed, it's just removed from that agenda?
It goes from consent to non-consent. And if you look at the roll call order,
Yeah.
right, there's two headings.
Yes, there is,
So you
yeah.
could have resolutions under consent and non-consent,
Okay.
right? So like tonight, we had some debate and disagreement. That would be on a non-consent. That would be read, it would be motioned, second, discussion, and then a vote. And it
Okay.
allows that opportunity. But if it's on some of the others that we, like
Yeah, we had
CDBG,
a
everybody
couple.
agrees,
Yeah.
you can just rip through that.
I mean, the other point to this is, I find it, especially with the transfer of funds, I find it like impossible to follow if someone is reading it, but if this is posted in advance, people can actually see it. The numbers spoken just do not make any,
The person reading it has just such a hard time as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, between the numbers of the item and the cost.
Oh, yeah.
It's like better if people can actually see
Bunch-
that,
bunch
that
of
we can
gibberish.
see it, and then just say that we approve the transfer.
It truly is a bunch of gibberish.
Okay. All right.
I do have one other thing.
Yes, please.
So just to kind of summarize, so for next meeting, we already have on our agenda a local law for food trucks, discussion of that, is that correct?
We should have discussion of that,
Right?
yeah.
And then lifeguards,
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to be,
Well, the question
We
was,
need to have
who was
Rec
gonna-
find out
Rec should.
the salary.
right.
Can
And
you
then
direct them to do that, Nicole?
Judy's already on it.
Oh, Judy, I'm sorry,
We need to do that already.
I
She's
know.
going to send it to us.
Thank
And then we'll
you.
just, so all we have to have a resolution to
So-
post, or a motion to post a position?
Yes, once the salary is figured out, once the hourly rate. And then, I'm sorry, what was the first
So
one?
I think the so once Rec presents what they have and what their suggestion is, the board will have that'll be a discussion item. Board will discuss it, and then they, like we do with every other going out for an advertising.
Maybe Recreation
just
could
be a
just send
motion.
it to
Yeah,
the,
motion to
circulate to
post
the
it
board
with
by.
that salary.
And that
Yep.
goes, and
By
then the
email.
next meeting, we
Just
would,
to move it along.
whatever comes in or however long it takes to find a candidate, then we'll do
So to
that.
kind of help, I think, this process, because the whole point is to try to consent these meetings, I sit there and I read and acknowledge all of the reports, but you notice that this meeting specifically, it was posted, all of the supporting documentation that accompanied the resolutions and the agenda items that were circulated to us prior. And then I sent to each of the board members a specific packet that showed absolutely everything. So I can see members of the audience have it printed out, were able to take notes, knew how to make comments. So this would also include all of our reports, because these reports can also be posted so they're reading them. I did respond to one of the departments that got a late report in that unfortunately, it wasn't posted. And as you saw, my response is to have it into me by 11 o'clock on Monday. So that way we can begin to have these packets ready for the public, so that way they're seeing them all. So that's something to just take back to the liaisons. If you guys are okay with this schedule, to please ask all of your committee chairs to have their reports if they're doing a written report, because then the supervisor may not have to add each one to come in to speak for 10 minutes
Right.
if they have a written report.
Okay, well, that sounds lovely, because if we have a shorter session, our TV ratings will definitely improve.
There's another thing on the agenda.
Wait, what was the first thing, though?
The first thing was
Food
the
trucks.
local law for food trucks.
Oh, local law for food
Yeah,
trucks.
so the board has authorized me to
Draft that.
to start drafting that. That might take more than just the next meeting, have all that ready to go. You saw how long cannabis law took, there's zoning, this is a zoning change, it's involved, so.
But it might be worth discussing that before it gets turned over to Ian in
That's-
terms of what we
and that's fine.
think.
All right, so you,
I
so
think
that
we
would
should
be
have a
discussion.
discussion,
item.
yeah, 'cause I
Okay, so we'll
think
put that
it's
for
so
discussion, yeah,
wide
sure,
open.
sure. So I won't do anything on that.
Okay, and what was your last?
The approval of the Justice Court documents.
I'm sorry, why am I not understanding that?
She did my audit today.
Oh,
Oh. Okay, well, I will read through.
And there's 3 public hearings, correct? There's one for the opt-in, the rescinding, and then the one for accepting the law. There's,
Law.
right? And then there's the third one is the block grant.
Right.
Yep, for that's the next
Yeah,
meeting.
you asked for, yeah, you just.
Wow, look at us, we're way ahead of
So we'll
ourselves.
do all 3.
I'm going to assume
Whatever
that
our
there
next one, yes.
are no other town board
Oh,
comments.
yes,
'cause we-
I
oh,
most
you-
certainly have town board
Oh,
comments.
whoa,
I've been
I
waiting
thought
my
it would
turn.
be under other matters. I'm
No,
so
no,
confused.
I'm waiting for town board comments.
just so I'm clear, I'm
Wait,
also
wait.
going to be drafting and working on putting together the local law for the supervisor
4-year
term.
term.
So I will start working on that as well. That may not be ready for
The next one as
resolution,
well.
but we have more than enough time to pass that local law and then submit it for a ballot proposition. So we have plenty of time for that.
Okay, Paul.
All right, so
go
I just
ahead.
want to respond to the public comments during the discussion about the dispensary. In 2023, at the public candidates meeting, Leo, Rosanna, myself, and Mrs. Doyle all expressed public support for opting in. That was in 2023, so that's on record, that was videotaped. I'm sorry?
It was actually,
At the
forum,
the
so-
candidates forum, we all four expressed public support for opting back in. So it has been already put forward to the community that the 4 of us, or the 3 of us sitting here now, all support that. This town in 2022 did not use a public referendum to opt out. Why would we need to do that to opt in? That kind of seems to be stacking the deck against anybody who doesn't like something. That doesn't seem fair. As far as other communities around us, both Pine Plains and Millerton have both opted in. That's a hard fact. So if we have a local...
I don't think Millerton did, actually, Paul.
From what I read that they did, but maybe not. But I know for a fact that Pine Point definitely has.
All right,
If we
stick to that.
have a local micro grower that opens up here in our community, which they don't need our approval, they get that from New York State, they would be allowed to go and open their store in Pine Plains and sell that product, and we would see no tax benefits. That makes no sense, right? Why, we got a farmer that's growing their product in our community, but we're not going to allow them to sell that product in our community. We're going to tell them they need to go 15 miles away and sell it. As far as the youth, I have an 18-year-old and I have a 19-year-old. Both are definitely afraid, or they're telling me that their peers are definitely afraid of fentanyl. So they're going out and buying test strips whenever to test their marijuana, because whether everybody realizes or not, we have a thriving, very thriving black market in our community currently for marijuana. My 18, 19-year-old both tell me it's much easier to go buy marijuana than it is to go buy beer. The difference is beer is regulated. If we open a dispensary, we now have a regulated product that we know is safe, that is not with possibly tainted with pentothal, and you have to be 21, you have to show ID to get this. So that makes no sense that we wouldn't allow a product to be sold in our community because we're worried about protecting our youth. They already have access to that. They don't need our permission to go get it. They already go and get it very easily. They can just make a phone call and it shows up in 30 minutes, but they have to struggle to go get a 6-pack of beer. So this idea that we're going to protect our youth from marijuana, I think that's, far-fetched. Not going to happen. The idea behind this is to also about the driving. You're worried about people driving up to Great Barrington, purchasing their product and driving home unsafely. Well, if they come and purchase their product right here in Amenia, that drive is a lot shorter. I think that would be a good idea as well, right? But most often, most people that I know the adults that I know that would visit a store are not going to partake in, just like if you go to the liquor store, you don't go sit out in your car and open up your bottle of liquor and then drive home. I mean, this is for responsible adults, right? Illicit drugs are going to be here whether we regulate it or not. We can't change that. The state of New York has already legalized this drug. The federal government has ordered DE or whichever regulating agency there is to start working on moving this marijuana from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 4, which is exactly the same as regulation for an aspirin. So change is coming. The change is coming. There's no doubt to it. So we can either address it like adults in the room and actually face up to it, or we can keep saying no, no, no. We want to say that this isn't something that's in our neighborhood, but it already is. And it's always been here, and it's always going to be here. That's not going to change. Telling people that they've got to drive all the way up to Great Barrington, 45 minutes away to get something that anybody can get right here on the street corner illegally, that just makes no sense. As far as the music series being moved to Beekman Park, when I started that music series 2 years ago, the idea was to have it in the center of town to draw people to the center of town. Beekman Park is outside of the center of town. Everyone drives there. Whenever I coached baseball there for years, everybody drove, nobody walked. What I've noticed the past 2 years are everybody's walking from either Broadway, Depot Hill, on all that area. They walk down to the music series. So I'm not understanding where parking would be that thing. I mean, if you're worried about people parking close, if you got to park at Beekman, you got to walk just probably close the same amount of distance that you would do if you park here in town, or if you park over here at Town Hall and walk over to the music series. All right, that's it for my public comment.
Okay.
Okay, can I make comments to those comments?
Well, comments on comments, you go.
All right. First of all, a lot of things have changed since 2023. I'm hearing more and more people are opposed to the dispensary, and I feel I'm responsible to the people who elected me. So, I would like to hear, and I would like to know how they feel about it. So that's, what I feel and what the community feels. I feel I do have a responsibility to the community. That's number one. As far as the underage people will still get it off the street because obviously they're not allowed to go into the dispensary. So that's not going to solve the underage 18 and 19-year-olds from buying it off the street because they're not allowed in the dispensary to begin with. So they're still going to buy it off the street. I did have a chance, I actually ran into a student I had years ago who happens to be a state trooper. I said to him, by the way, can you tell me, since marijuana has been legalized in the state of New York, do you find increased incidences of accidents and drug-related incidences? And he said absolutely 100%. He said it has impacted, it has increased their load of crimes. I always love when people say responsible adults, because there are a lot of responsible adults that are behind bars that or a lot of adults that are behind bars. Not all adults are responsible. So, I just want to comment to that.
Okay, well, unless you have something to say.
No.
No, me neither. Okay, so that's other matters, town board comments. We allow public comment a second time in the
ahead.
evening.
Go ahead, Judy.
Come on, Judy, don't disappoint us. You always have something for us.
Sometimes you make it too easy. Okay, let's see, on Beekman Park, we'll talk about that separately. I do wish you wouldn't say things like, I started the music series, because I know it began with your idea, but we do have a rec commission, and it would be nice for all of them to get credit for what they do on the commission too. As far as the local law on committees, since I'm someone who spoke against some of those, let me remind you what I had a problem with. One, I had a problem with the idea that the town board could remove any committee member for no reason, which is what the law says. I find that totally undemocratic. I find that likely to make it extremely difficult to have people apply for a committee if you ever do remove someone for no reason. You are not going to get people who are going to be willing to serve if you could just knock them off because you feel like it. And I've virtually never seen a board where terms aren't staggered. On the school boards, they're 3-year terms. You have 2 one year, 2 next year, 3 the next year. On the town board, the town council are staggered every other year. Every other committee in this town is staggered so that people come and go as they go. This is a very minor thing, but that would mean that every single 2 years, we would have to advertise for 5 new members, or however many people were on there. And we would, it's not useful, and I don't see any reason for having it. There's no reason to change a system that's working with every other board here. That's just my opinion. Okay, let's see. Now when it comes to the cannabis, I've never been someone as a parent or as a member of the community who thinks that they're going to do it anyway, so why should we bother is a good reason for doing anything. I don't like that reasoning. I think that it is completely against the idea of trying to conduct a civil society with rules where people are responsible for what they do and responsible for following the rules so that everyone benefits from that. So I find that argument really bothersome. I don't remember hearing, I do remember Rosanna saying that she wasn't necessarily opposed to it. If you guys said you were going to vote for it, then okay, I will assume that you did and say I wish you hadn't, but I still think we should get to do a referendum. And if you choose not to do that, I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be a petition for a referendum. So that's up to you. That's up to you. I
encourage the community to do that. I strongly encourage the community the past year to create that petition and go out and get those votes if that's what they wish. I did the same thing for the $6 million bond. No, I encourage the community to go out and get the petition signed to force a public referendum for both of these items.
Oh, okay, that's how you remember it.
So I suggest that we
Oh, wait, she has another comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
One more.
60 years a long day.
Everyone says, oh, we can have it here in town and we get all this revenue from it. We don't. We don't get a hell of a lot of revenue from it. It's less than 2%. So it's not a moneymaker for the town. And our previous town board, Jim Morris, pointed that out. He's an attorney, and he was talking about how much money actually comes back into the community. It gets filtered down. You get the government, you get the state, you get the county, and then you get the town.
The town gets 5%.
Since when?
Read the local cannabis law. I mean, New York State cannabis law. It's right there in the
Well,
cannabis law.
when Jim was on, it was 2%. It's like,
That's the most current cannabis law that you can get from the state of New York. It's 5% for the town.
You know, the experience we've had with it, it's devastating.
I'm rather disappointed, Paul, listening to you with a very, very weak argument.
Okay.
I think there are issues that town board members should be focusing on, things like a place for kids to swim. We should never have a drowning locally. Secondly, we need wastewater, which is about 50 years overdue here. It's the main issue behind public housing, making the town actually thrive. You don't have to do a lot of research to realize if you do not have wastewater, you don't survive.
So
And to focus on something like
so I served on the wastewater committee for
cannabis,
3 years.
I find it such a weak argument, Paul, to start saying that it's on the streets, so we might as well make it legal and have that as a place. Listen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
kids who will find it on the
I'm gonna have a
street.
point of order here, sir. I don't mean to be rude and interrupt you
Okay,
or interrupt your
just one
time,
other item.
But I would like, you should address the board, not any particular board member, that's all.
Okay, I won't address personally. But to say that if you have a dispensary, it reduces the access, a person who wants illegal drugs is obviously going to find them anywhere, just like illegal weapons. They're available everywhere. And if you start condoning things with weakness, I think youth will see this and look at it as a solid weakness. And that's my last. Thank you.
I'm going to respond to that. I know that's not in a normal quorum.
No.
No, it isn't, and you shouldn't. So let's move on to,
George Bistro.
I just had a question. I was looking at the law, the cannabis law, and you've selected a site right adjacent to my property. And I'm just wondering why you did that.
I don't think,
How did we didn't select any
We didn't
sites.
select any sites.
We excluded sites, but we didn't select anything.
Well, I'm in a non-exclusion zone. Right next to my property is crop production services, and that whole land, which is right next to mine, I mean, I don't like them either. Their forklifts are beeping all day long. But I certainly don't want a cannabis dispensary next to me.
I'm kind of confused. We only regulated here in the center of town.
no, that's not true, Paul.
Oh, well,
There's the maps, all of those maps at the
Okay.
back of the report show other areas where, that are available for dispensaries.
I mean, how was this decided?
In the HR, right?
Why was it, I mean, why would you put it there? It's next to a scenic route. I don't want it there,
I
but,
also realized that the rail trail doesn't count as a park or a, what?
It does not count as a park. That's
It
correct.
doesn't count as a park. Okay.
yes, and the rail trail's is next to it as
There
well.
too, right. So, okay, thank you, George, but you should look at the maps.
Yeah, but we only regulated in the hamlet.
No, that's not
And-
right. The maps show other places in town where it's allowed, where you can have a dispensary. Did I actually bring those tonight? Probably not. But
I just wanna
there are
say
like
I'm
8 pages of maps. Paul.
Okay, but what I want to say is I'm pretty sure that it's only in business in a hamlet business district
It's another-
that we regulated. Am I
That-
correct or
that-
wrong? on that?
That's an item that we would have to go back and look off the top of my head right now. I don't know every specific area that was regulated or excluded in the local
We'll
law.
look at that before our next public hearing.
Sit on the homepage.
Okay, so I'd like to move that we go into executive session. We have a few things, hopefully not. I mean, I know we
You got to close,
I'll
right?
second.
No, well, it's a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter and to discuss legal advice,
Process matter.
legal advice with regards to the kilns.
I'll second.
There you go.
No, those
Nicole,
are
that
done.
was you?
I seconded, yes.
Yes.
Advice regarding kilns. Supervisor Blackman?
Yes.
Council members Winters?
Yes.
Ham?
Yes.
Ahern?
Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.